So we do have some time now for questions from the audience. I wonder if we should just take a few, and then we can respond to them all together. So, okay.
Thank you. I have a question. What's the difference between the U.S. debt and the debt that African nations own? Because the U.S. debt doesn't keep the U.S. from being one of the leading powers of the world, but then African nations can't make it because of that debt that is strangling them.
Shall I talk? Okay. The first question is a very important question. What makes African and third world debt different from the American debt? Number one, America is never going to pay its debts. It doesn't have to. Its debts are in its own currency. We can simply print it. The African debt is not in its currency. The African debt is in US dollars. Africa has to earn the US dollars, and the only way it can earn the US dollars is not to be assassinated for growing its own food and becoming independent and doing something that the United States does not like. The principle underlying the foundation of the World Bank, the International Bank for IBRD, research, the World Bank, is that no country should grow its own food. Africa and the third world should only grow export crops. To export, in order to have an oversupply of cocoa and other tropical raw materials, to keep down the price, they must buy their grain from the United States or Europe, so that if they do something that we don't like, we can do what America tried to do to China in the 60s. We can sanction them. We can say, we're going to starve you. We're going to not export any grain to you. So owing their foreign debt in dollars means that they have to somehow sell something that the United States wants, not what they want. I think the most evil organizations in the world today are the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. And my book, Super Imperialism, that I wrote in 1972, is all about that. The largest purchasers of the book were the Defense Department and the CIA. I was immediately, the organization I worked for was given a $75,000, $85,000 Defense Department contract for me to come to explain to them how American imperialism worked, and they used it as a how to do it book. They thought it was just spontaneous. And I had written the book thinking that socialists in third world countries would do something about it, and indeed it was translated into Spanish and other languages. But it was really the Defense Department that applied most of this, and I was amazed when I was invited to the White House to explain how imperialism worked. And my boss said, we've run rings around the British imperialists. This is how to do it. You make them owe the debts in your currency, not their own. You control their central bank and make them financially dependent on you, and then you've got a stranglehold for them. So certainly the third world countries should cancel the debts under the odious debt principle. I haven't been able to convince any of them to do it because they said if we do that, the CIA will kill us. So how do you break that cycle? That's a problem I've not been able to solve.
So we're dealing with that, for lack of a better word, lack of foundation and background. That is affecting who we are,
Yes.
our African American brothers. On the other hand, we are dealing with this colonial institutional abuse on a whole people. So you're dealing with two issues here.
Yes.
How do you deal with those issues? How do we get to a place where we find a solution? I'm trying to hesitate. I'm hesitating saying closure because these are big things,
These are big
doctor,
issues.
that you're dealing with.
But here's the thing, understanding the genesis of it all.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, as a people of African descent, no matter where you find us on earth, we are a wounded people and we need healing. The process of wounding us might have been different, but the results are the same. When you look at the effects of colonization on the continent, the effects of slavery in the Americas, the bottom line is we are wounded. The process, the masterminding that went behind the brainwashing of the black person is universal. You take, for example, the fear of the white person by us. Well, the browbeating of the African started long before the children were taken out of Africa as slaves. So by the time the children were taken out of Africa as slaves, they were already brainwashed. They were already programmed to believe that Jesus Christ is white, that the angels are white, and that white people, even though they are not white like this cup over here, never mind that we are pinkish, but we are white like the angels, and you're black like the devil. We took it without question. To this very day, we take it without question. So that process, whoever came up with this mastermind, these missionaries being sent to Africa, teach them how to read, but not how to reason. It was a systematic process of demoralizing us and making us accept fifth-class citizenship position. It was applied equally.
And absolutely. It's still going on.
To this day.
So the two-legged monster, the associated to one slavery and then the other on colonialism, the 500 billion that's going on, hence the Black Lives Matter, hence all those things that are taking place. Those two issues are still going on. And like we said off air, Dr. Arikana, these are big things.
Yeah.
You sound like a lone voice.
That's okay. There are many others coming up. Did you see that video about this young Kenyan girl? There was some French Africa Youth Summit. Macron, what you doing?
Yeah.
Trying to create,
Yes.
I guess, more informants out of Africa. I hope the young people who were watching that learned something. We cannot be used anymore. But anyway, this young girl from Kenya, she said, Mr. President, I'm going to talk to you the way my presidents will not talk to you. And this girl went off and really gave it to Macron.
Furthermore, the breakdown in understanding what France fully stands for is fueled by the continued collaborations that France has with agencies, leaders, and individuals who have glaring integrity issues, whilst on the other hand, claiming to be standing for human rights. So on one hand, we have France that is entrenched in issues around racism, around exploitative dominance, and whilst on the other hand, they're still claiming to teach others about democracy.
We need more young people like that. So they're coming. It's the young man in Mali who shot down a French drone with a catapult. So they're coming. The voices are there. They're not as many, but they're coming.
Why, to your point about the Kenyan girl speaking to Macron, why are our presidents not standing up
To be honest with you,
speak about the things that are wounding us? Talk to me about that.
to be very honest with you, I don't envy any of the African heads of state. They're fighting with both hands, not only tied, but they're tied in their backs. At least if their hands were tied in their front, they could hit with their hands. Their hands are tied behind their backs. Let me start with the 14 countries that are former French colonies. Let me just give you a synopsis of the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. At independence, they had to give up 85% of their bank reserves, turn them over to the French treasury. Now that has come down to about 60%. And if they wanted some of that money, they had to submit a financial statement. And if approved, you could only access 20% of what you deposited the year before as a loan at commercial interest rate. France would take your deposits of the 14 countries, invest them in the French treasury under their name. You don't have to know what the returns are. Your language of instruction is French. Your minerals discovered, yet to be discovered, France has first right of refusal. Your military, it has to be trained by France. You got to acquire all your military equipment from France. Do you think they're going to give you the best? France
You've left out one important one, assimilation. Cultural assimilation.
Yes. And then French military is going to be present in your countries and may invade you without notice if they feel their interests are being violated. What are those interests? A president saying, why? We need our money. We cannot continue to turn over our bank reserves. That's a violation. You could be invaded. And they did. Men were killed. There were coups. They were exiled. So now you take a leader who has given up his finances, he has given up his military, he has given up his natural resources, he is left with 15% of his bank reserves. Now you say to him, why can't you feed your people? Let's be real here.
Let's be real. But why is that leader allowing that to happen? He's got the people to support him, to revolt against this.
He doesn't.
Can't.
Look at what we have right now in Africa. These people are forever supporting opposition. So even if opposition they are supporting today wins, tomorrow they no longer support them. Whoever is opposition, that's who they support. Serious money is going to support opposition. Serious money is going on to support all these quote-unquote terrorists. We don't have a single gun manufacturing plant in Africa. Where are the guns? Follow the guns. If you follow the guns, you know where the money is coming from. You know who the real enemy is. If you look at a situation, I was listening to President of Barbados. She hit the nail in the head when she was talking about the funds for terrorism and money laundering. She said when they were looking for money laundering from Russia, they didn't come to Africa. They didn't go to the Caribbean. They knew exactly where to go. Are you with me?
I'm with
So
you.
let's stop playing games here. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, they know what they're doing, and I hear you, but I want to see whether there is any accountability on us.
Absolutely. We are accountable. Here's how I summarize it very simply. You are the bully, and you're taking 80% of my lunch every day. And then because you're the bully and you got the money, now all you want me to do is highlight how I'm failing to make it with the 20%. But you don't want me to talk about the 80% that you're taking from me. So now we are foolish enough to be allowed our own people to be used to highlight the failures within the 20%. Yes, we could do something with that 20%. But golly, if that pie was bigger, if this would stop taking my 80%, pardon my language, but it is the truth. You know, I'm saying let's come together, deal with this. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it because it needs to be said.
But
they need to stop taking our lunch.
Yes, and I hear you, and I'm coming back to you and saying yes. Let's stand together and ask for them to account for the 80%. Let's stand together.
How? My brother, I'm trying. You have 6 people in your family. 3 are getting brown envelopes to say what they want them to say. There are so many brown envelopes running around Africa. So the question then becomes, how do we train the African not to be used as an instrument of your own self-destruction. That's where we need to go back to.
I'm going to throw the question back
Just
at you.
mind.
How do we do it?
Speak the truth. Let's teach our children our history. Our people do not know our history. We need to arouse the spirit of Pan-Africanism in each and every one of us. And let our children know when you are being used. So, for example, you get these young people, they are being invited to go to Europe by all these different NGOs. No, they are recruiting you. Take the money, but don't be abused.
What about our African heads of state?
Again, like I said,
Who allow me to finish. They fly to China, all of them, to meet
Yes.
one man.
now that,
Okay. Hold me. Let me finish.
yes,
Then they fly to Europe for the EU summit.
Right.
Then all of them fly in 50 planes to America to go and meet with Joe Biden. Where is, fine, you've said the people are brainwashed. Yes, but what about our presidents? Shouldn't it start there?
well, you're quite right.
Have they been given brown envelopes?
I don't know. I can't speak to that. But what I can say is there are areas we could do better. For example, you look at the United Nations. The largest voting bloc at the UN is the African bloc. We don't have a seat at the table. If they could all just come together and say, we are not coming, this institution is not for us, see how quickly things will change. But again, if it's not a brown envelope, it's all other things that can, if you do this, we will stop this. If you don't vote with us on this, these are the consequences. So there are always other things that are being threatened with, that if you don't do it, this is what's going to happen to your country. I can tell you with what I know right now, the majority of the African heads of states, they truly want what's best for their people. We have a few that could do better, but the majority really want what's best for their people. I was very proud of a lot of the heads of states this year at the UNGA. All of them came strongly in support of
sanctions against Zimbabwe.
And a lot of them were very Pan-African. So it's coming, but there's that fear of instability within their country. So as much as a leader might want to behave a certain way, but there are consequences that they have to look at and say, is it really worth it? What's going to happen to my people? So you end up, I'm going to share with you, it was one particular country. I won't mention the country. I got a phone call. There was a tender.
Can we play guess the country?
You can if you want. But there was a tender. I can tell you it was a French-speaking country. There was a tender that was coming out. And it was a company out of another African country, English-speaking, that was going to get, that did the best bid. And 50% what the French company was bidding for. So when it was obvious that the bid was going to go to this other African company, they were forced to give the bid to the French company. How I got involved, because now there was some smart person in that country who was saying, if somebody could leak this information to the media, then we can have, because they were going to save the country 50%. But we're talking billions of the contract. And so I just heard about it, but before I knew it, they managed to get it on BBC. So it was on BBC. It had to go on BBC before they could come back and say, hey, now the people know. We really can't do this, you know. And that's how this other company got the bid. You see the games they have to play. But within the country, no one could come out and speak about it because there would be serious consequences. We must be very clear about one thing in Africa. The hidden hand is real, the hidden hand is strong, and the hidden hand is very powerful. That is where we need to begin. Everything else that follows is a consequence of. We must understand the enemy, that big, powerful, strong, hidden hand. Let's deal with it. But for us to deal with it, we must understand it. And our people must understand it. So yes, we must hold our heads of states accountable. But again, back to the two men with briefcases, 50 billion and 500.
500 billion.
Yeah, we need an army for the smaller army for the 50 billion, a 10
bigger,
times bigger army
yeah.
for 500 billion. It's the game of war. We must strategize.
So your institute, the African Diaspora Development Institute, are you making headway?
I just want to bring the children of Africa home,
Yeah, okay.
because we understand the diaspora are Africa's true gold. Think of the brains that are in the diaspora. Think of the monies in the diaspora. If we can just repatriate those brains, repatriate those monies in an organized way, we don't need anybody. We are actually the only continent on earth that doesn't need the world. The world is Africa. Everybody knows it. There's not a single strategic planning session by any country around the world outside Africa that doesn't start with Africa. Because everything they need can and is being found in Africa. So we have what it takes, and they know it. You know, they're very jealous of us, actually very envious of what we have as a people. So not only have they gone after our natural resources, now they're going after our human resources. You see, they've gone for so many decades of reduced reproductive process. Now, the age gaps in their nations, huge. They're now looking for people to take care of them when they age.
Is the diaspora? You spoke about your meeting in South America. Is the diaspora ready to come home? Do they have any concerns about coming to Africa as it is?
Let me say this. We are making headway. The Pan-African conversations are increasing. I belong to a lot of platforms. I don't post, but I just follow. I love the conversations that are coming out. Is that enough? Not by any stretch of imagination. We need a lot more people to understand the issues. We find a lot, like for example, Zimbabweans, who just don't understand what's going on. This is an amazing country.
Beautiful country.
Beautiful country. One of the safest countries to live in, and yet it's painted as top 10 worst countries to live in. One of the best countries to invest in, opportunities that are so low hanging. But they don't know that. The president said, and I'm going to say it in our language, Nyika inovakwa neve nevayo. People must understand the country is going to be built by its people.
Absolutely.
But the people must be in the know. If the people do not know, how can they build their country? So to the Zimbabweans, I say, take some time. Because if you're going to say, we don't like the government, therefore we're not going to Zimbabwe, well, guess what? If opposition wins next time, there's now going to be another 50% that don't like opposition. So what's going to happen to your mother in the village? She didn't get anything done because you were mad at the ruling party. Then the next time another party comes in, your mother is still going to be the loser because nothing is going to get done because the opposition is fighting. How long are we going to wake up and say, Albert Einstein, insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result? No, we work with the current government, we make them accountable, we engage them at the highest level, we demand change. We demand that at the end of the day, it's about building that strong private sector. Nothing stops you
from what you're saying. Sorry to bump in, because I think your finger is on a very important thing, which is know the difference between your political party and your country.
Exactly.
That we can differ on which party I support. But when it comes to my country, the flag and my country, you can't touch me.
Absolutely.
Is that what you're saying?
Development is development.
Yeah.
If a bridge is built, the current president is not going to destroy it when he leaves. That just means the next president must come in and extend on that bridge. Put irrigation over that bridge. Develop it, advance it. But we need to look at it and say, what have I done to build my country, to contribute towards the building of my country? Politics or no politics. But they think government must give us this. No, government paves the way. But you must be available. They come to me all the time. Ambassador, these Chinese. I said, well, what about the Chinese? I said, the Chinese are getting the contracts because you're not there. I was talking to one of the I think it's the Zambian Development Agency, and he says, Ambassador, I have Chinese lined up on my door every day. Not any of my people, let alone the diaspora. So why are you complaining about the Chinese? You are not there. Because if you were there, they would not get the contracts. You are not there until you are ready to stand up, until you are ready to put your monies together, believe in each other, rather than continue to complain. Guess what? They love it when you continue to complain. So they can move in and take what belongs to you. The joke is on you.
Let's move on to something very important and related, which is xenophobia on the continent. And Ghanaians kicking out, was it Nigerians kicking out Ghanaians?
But I think they've learned though.
Somalia,
The difference
South
with
Africa,
Ghanaians.
South Africa is the concept.
But Ghanaians have learned though. Even Nigerians have learned from the mistakes they made. To think of all countries though, South Africa is a sad story. With everything the world did to liberate South Africa, it goes back again to the children don't know our history. They don't know the struggles. So we as elders, we have a responsibility to keep hammering that message home.
Because the Pan-African message then becomes, it's a much more higher level. When you're having to deal with people who, I call it, I think the appropriate word is Afrophobia. It's almost the fear of Africans or the hatred of Africans.
But it goes back to colonization. We're programmed to dislike each other. Did you see the little video that's been going around? A little black boy, around 5 years of age, is given two dolls, the black and the white doll. He says, which one is ugly? Points at the black doll. Which one is beautiful? Points at the white doll. Which one is mean? Points at the black doll. Which one is nice? Points at the white doll. Which one looks more like you? He goes, very sad. So that child is going to grow up to be the president of a country.
And yet,
that's his mindset.
Yeah.
That's how he sees the world. He doesn't even like himself. He says, I'm mean, I'm ugly. The subliminal messages are deep.
The subliminal messages are deep. The assignment is deep.
Yes.
The heavy lifting is huge.
Huge.
Because changing people's mindset is tougher than building infrastructure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is the biggest issue Africa has to deal with. The absolute most dangerous human being for Africa today is a colonized African mind.